Investigators in Manchester search for answers but face their own searching questions. As detectives rake through a rubbish dump in Bury, they ask for help to trace the bomber's blue suitcase. Meanwhile, its emerged powers to ban British jihadis have only ever been used once.
How those powers are applied are operational decisions for the police and the security services. And as I say, they will look at everybody on a case-by-case basis.
Also tonight, a keeper is killed at a zoo in Cambridgeshire in an apparent freak accident involving a tiger. The boss of British Airways says sorry, confirming 75,000 passengers were delayed by their computer crash.
Thanks very much.
And goodbye to a hero of children's television. John Noakes, Blue Peter's longest-serving presenter, dies at 83.
This is ITV News with Kylie Pentelow.
Good evening. A week on from the Manchester suicide bombing, investigators are still facing a number of searching questions. They're continuing to build up a picture around the bomber, Salman Abedi, and tonight released an image of a suitcase he used in the days before the attack. They've also been searching a rubbish dump in northern Manchester. But today, the Prime Minister moved to defend the security services after it emerged powers to control British jihadis have only been used once. Meanwhile, MI5 has admitted it's reviewing procedures over handling tip-offs. Our security editor Rohit Katra reports from Manchester.
The search is not just for the people, but for the items that contributed to last week's attack. Day 8 and a giant rubbish tip in Greater Manchester became the latest and the largest search site. Officers knew precisely where to go, and as they sifted, it became clear they were looking for large items, not for tiny fragments. Tonight, investigators released this image of Salman Abedi taken hours before the attack and wheeling a suitcase through central Manchester. They hope the distinctive case might alert potential witnesses. Almost 300 miles away before sunrise, the police trail reached Sussex. A man was arrested here. He's now one of 14 being held in custody.
He trained to be a pilot, which he finished, that's what he said.
Neighbours said they knew the arrested man.
You've spoken to him?
I have, yeah. I have. When they comes to have their hair done, hi, how are you? That's all.
And what sort of character is it? How did
Jovial character.
But behind closed doors, there is another investigation. MI5 is carrying out an internal review of whether mistakes were made, given that Salman Abedi was known to them. But there's another question raised by this case. On the campaign trail today, the Prime Minister was asked why authorities had only once used powers to prevent suspected jihadists from returning to Britain.
That temporary exclusion order didn't even exist under the last Labour government. It was a Conservative government. It was me as Home Secretary that put it into the legislation to give the powers to the police. But how those powers are applied are operational decisions for the police and the security services.
This is now a colossal investigation. Its pace and its scale almost unprecedented. 1,000 officers involved. Flats, homes, businesses searched. Police looking for phones, for documents, and for bomb-making equipment too. But in the heartbroken city of Manchester, the most pressing questions are about the future. Police officers are still everywhere this Monday night. 7 agonizing days, and the raids and the remembrance continue.
Rohit, just how significant are these investigations?
Well, not significant so far. These are really standard procedures. There's likely to be 2 reviews, internal and external, and neither of these are unusual, surprising, or indeed extraordinary. The fact they're happening doesn't necessarily indicate that there were intelligence failures, although that is, of course, the conclusion that they might eventually come to. We've seen reviews like this before, and already there is an internal review into the Westminster attack a few weeks ago, and what it has in common with the attack here in Manchester is that question about a peripheral character, someone who was already on the periphery of the radar, becoming a terrorist killer, and the question of whether the intelligence services could have prevented that from happening.
OK, Rohit, thank you very much. Now, in the past few minutes, it's been confirmed that a zookeeper has been killed in Cambridgeshire in an accident in the tiger enclosure. Well, Sally Lockwood is at the Hamerton Zoo for us this evening. Sally, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, Kylie, a few moments ago, staff at the enclosure here, the zoo, came to hand us a statement. They didn't want to read it out on camera, and it confirms that they're too distressed to talk at the current time. But in it, they say one of our colleagues was killed at Hamerton Zoo Park this morning. This appears to be a freak accident, they say. And they go on to confirm that at no point during the incident did any animals escape the enclosures, and at no point was public safety affected in any way. Cambridgeshire police have since confirmed that a keeper has died after a tiger entered the enclosure with her. At no point did the tiger escape. Now, that's all we know officially at the moment, but of course there are still many questions as to how this could have happened, and forensic officers and police officers have been here throughout the afternoon. The investigation already underway, and the zoo's website reveals it's kept tigers here since 2001, and it's one of the park's star attractions. The last known serious incident here was in 2008 when a cheetah escaped through a faulty electric fence. On that occasion, no one was injured. But on this occasion, no animal escaped, but the consequences have been far more serious, and it's certainly a very sad ending to the bank holiday weekend for people here.
Sally Lockwood, thank you. The chief executive of British Airways has apologised for the catastrophic computer crash which has affected more than 75,000 passengers. The airline boss says the failure was caused by a power supply issue and has rejected claims that job outsourcing from the UK to India was to blame. Martha Fairley has the latest.
A third day of disruption, and thousands of British Airways passengers faced another long wait at Heathrow. BA says 95% of flights are operating, and by the end of the day, 2/3 of the 75,000 passengers affected will have reached their destination. But that's no consolation for people like Maureen Levy, stuck in a hotel with no luggage instead of on a dream holiday in Ghana.
I'm here, my holiday is somewhere else, and I don't know where my case is. Just disgraceful. I think British Airways have an awful lot to answer for. And certainly I would never, ever, ever advise anyone to fly with them again.
At BA's Crisis Management Centre, they've been working round the clock since the outage on Saturday morning as they try to clear the huge backlog.
We do apologise profusely for all the hardship that this whole event has caused to many of our customers. In this particular case, it was a catastrophic failure. It did affect each and every one of our operational systems: baggage, passenger, flight operations, everything. So we were unable to actually restore and use some of those backup systems because they themselves could not trust the messaging that had to take place amongst them.
This weekend's massive disruption is thought to have been caused by a power surge at a British Airways data centre close to Heathrow, which knocked out the company's computer systems. The backup then also failed to work correctly. But the company says it has nothing to do with a cyber attack or outsourcing of IT operations to India.
The computer systems are now back up and running and services returning to normal, but it'll take BA much longer to restore customer confidence. Martha Fairley, ITV News, Heathrow.
Golfer Tiger Woods has been arrested in Florida on suspicion of drink driving. Police say the 41-year-old was taken to a local jail and released a few hours later. Woods has been recovering from recent back surgery. The former Blue Peter presenter John Noakes has died at the age of 83. He hosted the show in the 1960s and 70s and was perhaps best known for his on-screen partnership with the mischievous border collie Shep. His family confirmed he passed away on Sunday after a long battle with Alzheimer's. Ivor Bennett looks back at his life.
Oh, get off me foot! Naughty! Oh, thanks very much.
He was the grown-up generations of children considered a friend. Even when things went wrong, John Noakes could laugh.
Oh dear!
A real-life daredevil, during 12 years presenting Blue Peter, he did everything from speedway racing.
I was really scared. It took all my nerve to pick the moment and let go.
To scaling Nelson's column.
You told me there was overhang, but you didn't tell me it leant to one side.
But it was his love and tussles with border collie Shep that made him stand out.
Shep, get out!
In more than a decade presenting Blue Peter alongside John Noakes, Peter Purvis grew to know a man who embodied children's entertainment.
I mean, he's an amazing guy. He wasn't a great presenter on straight stuff. You know, if you had to give the facts, he wasn't likely to get them right. But he for just about anything else, unpredictable, great fun, wonderful to work with, and I loved him to bits.
Get up, Skip, get up.
After Blue Peter, Noakes starred in a number of programmes, many playing to his strength with animals. He was in part this special, simple relationship between a man and his dog, which won him a place in the nation's heart.
John Noakes, who's died aged 83. Finally, Huddersfield Town have been promoted to the Premier League after a nerve-wracking win against Reading in the Championship playoff final. After the match finished goalless, it all came down to the final kick of a penalty shootout, which was scored by Christopher Schneider. It means Huddersfield will play in the top flight for the first time in 45 years. And that's all for now. I'll be back with the news at 10, but for now, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.